Well, Elon Musk has spent more than 4 hours on the stand in San Francisco in a court defending the tweets that were made in 2018 claiming he secured funding to take Tesla private. One of the key points was the involvement of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. Bloomberg's Simone Foxman is tracking the story. So, Simone, what did Musk have to say about his dealings with this Saudi public investment fund, PIF for short?
Well, essentially that he had every reason to believe that their money was behind this take-private deal. He described discussions that he'd had with Yasser al-Rumayyan as well as the PIF in general. He also talked about a conversation that he'd had with al-Rumayyan, the governor of the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, where he said if the Sovereign Wealth Fund was really serious about taking Tesla private, something they'd talked about, then they would go ahead and acquire a 5% stake. And after that, without any written agreements, any further conversation, the Sovereign Wealth Fund did just that. And that's part of why Musk believed that he really had their support to take the company private. After the tweets, the relationship seems to have fallen apart, but Musk trying to prove that between the PIF backing, between his SpaceX shares, he wasn't misleading investors because he really did believe he had all the funding that he needed. But you know, the elephant in the room is the absence, perhaps, of any PIF representatives. They came forward earlier this month, said they are not going to participate. Makes it very difficult for a Musk to corroborate his accounts with anyone from the sovereign wealth side.
I mean, it's much more than an elephant in the room. That's a bit of an understatement. In the meantime, let's shift gears to Kuwait's cabinet. They've resigned amid a standoff with opposition lawmakers. What's the driving issue this time around? I mean, I lost track about how many times this cabinet has resigned.
Yeah, so there's actually been 6 new cabinets in the course of 3 years and also 6 elections in the past decade. I had to go back and kind of count this up, and we have some more details on that in our story here. But the underlying issue is what the country should spend its oil wealth on. A parliament was elected back in September that is led by opposition lawmakers, but this cabinet, which is chosen by the ruler, appointed in October, and they both have very different ideas of where this money should go. One of the things that the opposition wanted was for forgiveness of consumer loans of Kuwaiti citizens. That's something that the cabinet believed would be very expensive, but the parliament believed it was necessary. If you check out our GTV Go, though, you'll see that a lot of this political paralysis hasn't really had a huge impact on the limited amount of Kuwaiti debt outstanding, roughly trading in line, just a little bit higher there in the white yields with U.S. 10-year treasuries. And that's because, you know, the credit rating agencies, including Fitch last week, regard this as an extremely safe credit, even though they point out that the key weakness is this political dysfunction.
And a little bit more drama in Israel. A voting member of the Bank of Israel's monetary committee steps down. Not the governor, who was effusive in his praise for Yusuf. They want to get him over there to do a capital markets forum. I've never heard so much extolling of faith from a central bank governor. But it's not him who stepped down. Who is it?
No, it's Moshe Hazan. He's been on this committee for 5 years and was supposed to serve as a voting member for 2 more years. And he's also a professor, an economics professor in the country. And his resignation was purportedly to allow him to take a more public political activity. He warned in an interview with local news publication Calculus that the steps that were coming from the Netanyahu government could cause great damage to the independence of the judiciary and its public services. And he actually put some more interesting figures on some of the policies that are being proposed by the Netanyahu administration, seeing $20 to $30 billion of outflows and a potential brain drain from the tech sector. Let me just remind you what the government wants to do. They want the parliament to have more influence over who is appointed to the high court positions in Israel. They also want fewer checks by that judiciary judiciary system on the legislator and critics, including the tech sector luminaries at Hazan himself, saying that this would erode the judicial independence in an important way that would really hurt investor confidence in the country.